have blood on its hands.
Well, I think Assange should be assassinated, actually.
But I'd like to see a little drone hit Assange.
Wikileaks has been aggressively criticized for its recent releases of military and diplomatic secrets. The attacks being made do not stand up to serious scrutiny. This video will take on two of the messages used in attempts to discredit the actions of Wikileaks. Argument number one. Isn't there some need for secrecy? Would you want Wikileaks to release your credit card numbers? This argument seeks to play on a person's fear of losing their privacy and takes advantage of people's ignorance on the real goals of Wikileaks and other organizations. It implies simply that the ultimate goal of the leaks is to eliminate secrecy altogether. Nothing could be further from the truth. To really understand what Wikileaks is doing, we must understand that Wikileaks is not an attack on secrecy, but instead an attempt to expose the lying and double dealings that make up any conspiracy. An exposure of a conspiracy is a vastly different thing from a mindless attack on secrecy itself. Look at these two terms. Secrecy is simply a condition on which no value judgment is placed. A conspiracy, on the other hand, is not so innocent. Conspiracy is defined as a secret plan to do something unlawful. A conspiracy requires secrecy to be effective, and there is no conspiracy without secrecy. Secrecy, of course, can be used by legitimate enterprises for any number of legitimate purposes. This shows that there's nothing wrong with secrecy in itself. But secrecy can be misused by a group of conspirators, and it is these conspiracies that Wikileaks seeks to expose. To make an analogy, you could compare conspiracy and secrecy to a tank and its treads. A tank is not really a tank without the ability to move on treads, just as a conspiracy is not a conspiracy without the advantage of secrecy. One can say that Wikileaks exposes a conspiracy in the same way that an infantryman attacks a tank. Attacking a key weak point, the infantryman attacks the treads of the targeted tank, causing the tank to grind to a halt. The tank is now left exposed and can be eliminated. By ripping away the secrecy that makes conspiracy possible, you open the conspiracy to effective assault in the courts and public opinion. Wikileaks exposes conspiracies. It does not attack secrecy. The second argument is this. People might be killed or hurt when their names are exposed in the leaks. This argument has been made by a variety of people, but you must look at who makes it. It is sharply hypocritical, of course, for the U.S. Secretary of Defense, in charge of two wars which are generating an untold number of civilian casualties, to say that Wikileaks, who has harmed not a single person, has blood on its hands. This argument, coming from people who are responsible for daily civilian casualties, is blatantly preposterous. The fact is that no one should face death or execution or torture, be it by U.S. forces in Abu Ghraib prison or by the private army of some petty dictator. The elimination of conspiracies which cause needless civilian death is, in fact, precisely the behavior that an experiment like Wikileaks is trying to eliminate. Let's be clear. When one sets out on a path of releasing info like this, it does have and is meant to have real consequences. And governments which are revealed to have worked against the interests of their people, organizations who say one thing publicly and another privately, people who are actively involved in conspiracies, they are going to face consequences of one sort or another. Recent events have shown that the people whose names appear in these documents are not all good people with honest intentions. If we are to learn one lesson from the last decade of war and butchery, it is that many of these foreign informants have secret agendas which can lead to horrific consequences. Take, for example, Ahmed Chalabi, who swore up and down that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. His cynical, self-serving, and ultimately false arguments were the fuse that ignited the Iraq War. This is clear. The safety of one Chalabi is not worth the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians who perished in the war he helped start. We must not fail to take into consideration human life, be it 1 or 100,000. But this recent decade of slaughter shows us that the devious actions of one small group can have horrible consequences for tens of millions. And those who started these wars cannot now go around accusing others of having blood on their hands. The consequences are too great. We can no longer allow secret meetings in foreign embassies to determine the fate of millions of men, women, and children. Those who are guilty of wrongdoing must face the consequences. In conclusion, the goals of Wikileaks, as I understand it, is to bring about a paradigm shift, where governments and other large organizations must begin to realize that they cannot double deal, backstab, and lie with impunity. New technology has created a new method for exposing harmful secret activities. Governments can no longer hide their harmful agendas in secret backroom dealings. They will be exposed. In today's dawning new world, governments and corporations have a choice. Be more open and honest or face the consequences.